Captain Lee Dae-hyun gripped the controls of his fighter ship as red warning lights flashed all around him. The enemy fire had damaged his engines badly. Smoke filled the cockpit and made his eyes water. He could barely see through the thick gray clouds that rolled in from the broken panels. "Come on, hold together," he whispered to his ship. But the metal frame groaned and shook. Sparks flew from the control board. The ship was dying, and he knew it. Through the cracked window, Dae-hyun saw the alien planet below. It looked like a nightmare made real. Orange flames danced across the dark surface. Thick black smoke rose high into the purple sky. Rivers of red lava flowed between jagged rocks. The whole world seemed to be burning. His radio crackled with static. No voices came through. His squadron was gone, shot down or scattered across the galaxy. He was alone above this hellish world. The ship lurched to the left. Dae-hyun fought to keep it level, but the controls would not respond. The engines made a terrible grinding noise. Then they went silent. The ship began to fall. "Emergency systems online," he said out loud, following his training. His hands moved quickly over the controls. He had done this drill 100 times before, but never in real combat. Never above a world that looked like the inside of a volcano. The ejection seat was his only hope now. Dae-hyun reached for the bright red handle above his head. He took one last look at the burning world below. Maybe he could find shelter somewhere. Maybe the flames were not as bad as they looked. He pulled the handle hard. The cockpit exploded, upward. Wind hit his face like a hammer. The seat rocket fired and threw him high above his dying ship. Below him, the fighter crashed into a field of burning rocks. Orange flames swallowed it whole. Dae-hyun's parachute opened with a loud snap. The silk canopy spread wide above him. He swayed back and forth as he fell toward the hellish surface. The air was hot and thick. It burned his throat when he breathed. The smell was terrible, like rotten eggs mixed with burning metal. As he got closer to the ground, Dae-hyun could see more details. The flames were everywhere, but they moved in strange ways. They did not flicker like normal fire. Instead, they danced in perfect circles and straight lines. Some flames made triangle shapes. Others formed squares that rotated slowly in the air. "That's not natural," he said to himself. But he had bigger problems right now. The ground rushed up to meet him. Dae-hyun pulled on the parachute strings to steer away from the largest flames. He aimed for a dark area between two rivers of lava. The rocks there looked solid even if they glowed with heat. He hit the ground hard. Pain shot through his legs and back. The parachute dragged him forward across sharp stones. He rolled and bounced until he could grab the release catch. The silk canopy flew away in the hot wind. Dae-hyun lay still for a moment. Everything hurt, but nothing seemed broken. He sat up slowly and looked around. The world was even worse up, close. The ground under him was black rock covered with gray ash. The ash was warm to the touch and smelled like sulfur. Orange flames rose from cracks in the stone. They made no sound as they burned. That was the first strange thing he noticed. Real fires made noise. They crackled and popped. These flames were completely silent. The second strange thing was the ash. It did not fall randomly like snow. Instead, it fell in perfect spirals. Each piece of ash followed the same curved path as it drifted down. It was like watching a carefully planned dance. Dae-hyun stood up and checked his equipment. His survival pack was still strapped to his chest. Inside, he found water tablets, emergency food, a medical kit, and a small scanner. His sidearm was in its holster. The energy cell showed a full charge. He activated the scanner and pointed it at the flames. The device beeped and showed confusing readings. According to the scanner, the flames had no heat source. They should not exist. But Dae-hyun could feel the heat on his face. Sweat ran down his back. Equipment malfunction, he decided. The crash must have damaged the scanner. The air was getting harder to breathe. His throat burned with each breath. The sulfur smell made him feel sick. He needed to find shelter soon or the poisonous air would kill him. In the distance, Dae-hyun could see dark openings in the rocky hills. Caves. They would protect him from the toxic atmosphere. He could set up camp inside and figure out his next move. He started walking toward the nearest cave opening. The ground was rough and uneven. Sharp stones cut through the soles of his boots. The heat made every step feel like walking through an oven. As he walked, Daehyun noticed more strange things. The lava rivers flowed uphill in some places. That was impossible. Lava always flowed downward. Gravity did not work differently on alien worlds. The flames also followed patterns that made no sense. They formed perfect geometric shapes that rotated and shifted. Some flames spelled out symbols he did not recognize. Others created pictures that looked almost like writing. "This place makes no sense," he said to himself. But he kept walking, toward the caves. Behind him something moved in the flames. Daehyun did not see it. He was focused on the cave entrance ahead. The opening was large enough for a man to walk through. Dark shadows filled the space beyond. The thing in the flames watched him walk away. It had many eyes and moved without making any sound. It followed at a safe distance, staying hidden in the strange fire patterns. Other watchers emerged from different flame patches. They communicated without words, using gestures that no human would understand. They had been waiting for another visitor to their trap. The last one had provided good hunting for many days. This new arrival looked stronger than the previous ones. He moved with purpose and kept his weapon ready. He would be more challenging to catch. The watchers liked challenges. They made the final feast taste better. Daehyun reached the cave entrance and paused. Cool air flowed from the darkness inside. It smelled better than the toxic atmosphere outside. He took a deep breath and stepped into the shadows. The cave was deeper than he expected. His footsteps echoed in the darkness. Somewhere far ahead, he thought he heard water dripping. Behind him, the watchers smiled with too many teeth. Another guest had entered their domain. The real hunt could begin. Daehyun walked deeper into the cave, his boots echoing on the stone floor. The air was cooler here, but it carried a strange smell, something sweet and rotten at the same time, like fruit left to decay in the sun. He pulled out a small flashlight from his survival pack. The beam cut through the darkness and showed smooth walls carved from black rock. But these were not natural cave walls. Someone had made them. Tool marks covered every surface in careful patterns. The cave split into 3 tunnels ahead. Daehyun chose the middle path because it seemed to have the freshest air. As he walked, his light revealed more carved symbols on the walls. They looked like pictures telling a story. The first pictures showed different creatures falling from the sky. Some looked human. Others were clearly alien with strange shapes and too many arms. All of them had the same expression of fear carved into their faces. Daehyun stopped walking. His heart began to beat faster. These were not decorations. They were records. Records of other crash survivors who had found this same cave. He moved, his light to the next set of carvings. These showed the fallen creatures being hunted by tall, thin figures with long claws. The hunters moved in groups and surrounded their prey. The carvings were very detailed. Too detailed. Someone spent a lot of time on these. Daehyun whispered. His voice sounded small in the empty tunnel. The third set of pictures was the worst. They showed the hunters eating their prey. Not just killing them. Eating them while they were still alive. Daehyun turned his light away quickly, but the images stayed in his mind. He continued deeper into the cave system. The tunnel opened into a large chamber filled with bones. Thousands of bones. They were piled against the walls like decorations. Skulls stared at him with empty eye sockets. Some were human skulls. Many others belonged to alien species he had never seen before. Indio. The center of the chamber stood a large stone table. Dark stains covered its surface. More carvings surrounded the edges. These carvings were different. They moved and changed as Daehyun watched. The stone figures danced and fought in an endless loop. Holographic projectors, he said out loud. His military training helped him recognize the technology. Someone had built advanced display systems into the stone walls. The carvings were actually three-dimensional movies playing over and over. Daehyun examined the walls more carefully. Hidden panels and devices were built into the rock. Cables ran through channels carved in the stone. This whole cave was actually a high-tech facility disguised to look primitive. A sound echoed from deeper in the caves. Footsteps, but they were not human footsteps. They clicked on the stone like claws tapping against metal. Daehyun turned off his flashlight and moved quietly toward the sound. He drew his sidearm and set it to maximum power. The weapon hummed softly as it charged. The footsteps came closer. With them came voices. They spoke in a language Daehyun did not know, but the tone was excited. Hungry. He pressed against the wall and waited. 3 tall figures entered the bone chamber. They walked on 2 legs like humans, but everything else was wrong. Their skin was gray and covered with scales. Long claws grew from their fingers. Their faces had too many teeth and eyes that glowed in the dark. The creatures examined the stone table and spoke to each other. One of them pointed at the tunnel where Daehyun was hiding. It had found his footprints in the dust. Daehyun aimed his weapon at the closest creature. But before he could fire, a hand grabbed his shoulder from behind. "Do not shoot," a voice whispered in his ear. "There are too many of them." Daehyun spun around. A woman stood behind him in the shadows. She was human, with short black hair and torn clothing. Her face was thin and dirty, like she had not eaten well for many days. "Who are you?" he whispered back. "Dr. Park Minji," she said. "I crashed here 2 weeks ago. Come with me if you want to live." She led him through a hidden passage behind the bone chamber. The passage was narrow and dark. They crawled for several minutes before reaching another cave. This cave was smaller and filled with salvaged equipment. Pieces of crashed spaceships had been turned into shelters and tools. A small fire burned in the center, providing light and warmth. 2 other people sat by the fire. One was a human man in a military uniform. The other was clearly alien, but not like the creatures they had just seen. This alien had blue skin and 4 arms, but a kind face. "Another survivor," Dr. Park said. "This is Sergeant Kim Tae-yang. He has been here for 3 months, and this is Veltar from the Centauri colonies." Sergeant Kim looked up from the fire. His uniform was patched and dirty, but he still carried himself like a soldier. "Welcome to hell," Kim said. "What ship were you on?" "Fighter squadron from the battleship Seoul," Daehyun replied. "Captain Lee Daehyun." "A captain?" Kim smiled. "Good. We can use someone with command experience." Dr. Park sat down by the fire and gestured for Daehyun to join them. "Let me explain what you have walked into. This planet is not what it appears to be. The volcanic activity is fake. The flames and ash are projections created by hidden machines." She pointed to a tablet showing scan results. "I have been studying the technology since I arrived. The entire surface is an elaborate trap designed to force crash survivors underground. Once we enter the caves, we become prey." "Prey for what?" Daehyun asked, though he suspected he already knew. "The Kethval," Veltar spoke for the first time. His voice was deep and musical. "An ancient species of hunters. They have been using this world as their feeding ground for over 1,000 years." Sergeant Kim threw another piece of debris on the fire. "They do not just hunt us, they play with us first, like cats playing with mice. They want us afraid before they kill us." "How many of them are there?" Daehyun asked. "We have counted at least 30 in this cave system," Dr. Park replied. "But there may be more. They are very good at hiding." "And how many survivors?" "Just us as far as we know. There were others when I first arrived." The Kethval took them one by one. Daehyun looked around the small cave. 3 people and 1 alien against 30 predators with advanced technology and knowledge of the terrain. The odds were not good. "There has to be a way out of here," he said. Sergeant Kim laughed, but there was no humor in it. "We have been trying to escape for months. Every tunnel leads to more Kethval. Every exit is watched. This cave system goes on for kilometers underground. Then we fight," Daehyun said simply. The others stared at him. Dr. Park shook her head. Captain, you do not understand. The Kethval are not just hunters. They absorb the memories and skills of everything they eat. They know how every species fights. They have learned from 1,000 different kinds of prey. But they have never fought humans before, Daehyun replied. Have they? Sergeant Kim's eyes lit up with understanding. No, they have not. Dr. Park spread a hand-drawn map on the ground between them. It showed the cave system in rough detail, with red marks indicating where the Kethval had been spotted. There are more survivors, she said quietly, scattered throughout the caves, but reaching them is dangerous. She pointed to different locations on the map. Here, in the deep tunnels, there is a group of 5 aliens from different worlds. One is injured badly. Here, near the underground river, there are 3 more humans, from a cargo ship. Sergeant Kim added his own marks to the map. I found 2 more yesterday. They are hiding in the crystal chambers to the east. One is a merchant captain from Earth. The other I could not identify, but he seemed friendly. That makes 14. Survivors total, Veltar calculated. Still far fewer than our enemies. Daehyun studied the map carefully. His military training taught him to look for patterns and weaknesses. The Kethval positions formed a rough circle around the survivor groups. They were keeping the prey separated on purpose. They want us alone and afraid, he said. Divided, we are easy targets. Together, we might have a chance. Getting to the other survivors will not be easy, Dr. Park warned. The Kethval patrol the main tunnels constantly. They know every path and hiding place. Then we make new paths, Daehyun replied. He pointed to areas on the map that showed solid rock walls. Do any of you know how to make explosives? Dr. Park raised her hand. I am a scientist. I know chemistry, but we would need materials. The crashed ships, Sergeant Kim said with growing excitement. There are pieces scattered all over the caves. Power cells, fuel tanks, chemical compounds. Veltar nodded his agreement. My people are miners by trade. I know how to break through rock safely. Good, Daehyun said. But first we need to rescue the closest survivors. The longer we wait, the more of them the Kethval will take. They spent the next hour planning their first rescue mission. The 3 humans hiding near the underground river were closest and seemed to be in the most immediate danger. Kethval patrol routes passed near their location every few hours. We go tonight, Daehyun decided. Kim, you know the safe paths. Park, bring anything that might work as a weapon or tool. Veltar, can you move quietly? The alien smiled, showing sharp but not threatening teeth. My people were miners, but before that we were hunters on our home world. I can move like a shadow. As darkness fell in the caves, the 4 survivors prepared for their mission. They wrapped cloth around their boots to muffle sound. They covered any equipment that might reflect light. Each carried a simple weapon made from salvaged ship parts. The journey to the river took 2 hours of careful movement through narrow passages and around Kethval patrol areas. They could hear the aliens clicking and hissing to each other in the distance, but never saw them directly. The underground river was a wide stream of clear water that flowed through a large cavern. The sound of flowing water would help cover any noise they made. But it would also make it harder to hear enemies approaching. They found the 3 survivors huddled in a small cave beside the water. 2 men and 1 woman, all human. They were weak from hunger and fear, but alive. We are here to rescue you, Daehyun whispered to them. The woman, who introduced herself as Captain Han Sora, grabbed his arm desperately. Thank the stars. We thought we were the only ones left. The 2 men were crew members from her cargo ship. Engineer Nam Jinho had broken his leg in the crash. Communications officer Yoon Do-hyuk had been keeping watch while the captain tried to find food. Can he walk? Kim asked, looking at the injured engineer. I can try, Nam replied, though his face was tight with pain. They fashioned a crude crutch from a piece of ship debris. It would have to work. They could not carry him and move quietly at the same time. The return journey was more dangerous. 6 people made more noise than 4, despite their efforts to be quiet. The injured engineer struggled with the rough terrain. Several times they had to stop and wait for Kethval patrols to pass. When they finally reached the hidden cave, Everyone collapsed with exhaustion. But there was no time to rest. Dr. Park had been monitoring the alien communication frequencies during their absence. "The Kethaval know we rescued someone," she reported. "Their patrol patterns are changing. They are searching more actively." "How long do we have?" Daehyun asked. "Maybe one day before they find this cave," she replied. "Captain." Sora looked around their small sanctuary with despair. "Then what? We cannot fight them. I have seen what they do to prisoners." "We are not prisoners," Daehyun said firmly. "We are soldiers, scientists, and survivors, and we are going to fight back." He gathered everyone around the map. "Tomorrow night, we rescue the next group, then the next. We bring all the survivors together in one place. Then we show these Kethaval what happens when they hunt humans." Engineer Nam looked skeptical despite his pain. "Captain, with respect, there are only 7 of us now. Even if we rescue all the others, we will still be outnumbered." "Numbers are not everything," Sergeant Kim said. "I have been watching the Kethaval for months. They are powerful and intelligent, but they follow patterns. They do the same things over and over because those tactics have always worked. But they have never fought humans before," Veltar added, understanding the plan. "They do not know how humans think or fight." Dr. Park nodded slowly. "We could use that advantage. If we do something completely unexpected, something no other species would try." "Exactly," Daehyun said. "Every species they have fought before either ran away or fought with honor. They absorbed the memories of warriors and cowards, but never anyone crazy enough to turn a trap into a weapon." Communications Officer Yoon raised his hand. "Captain, what exactly are you planning?" Daehyun smiled for the first time since crashing on this nightmare world. "We are going to do something the Kethaval will never expect. We are going to hunt the hunters." The cave fell silent as everyone absorbed this idea. Fighting back against the Kethaval seemed impossible, but running had not worked either. Maybe the only way out was through. "First, we need everyone together," Daehyun continued. 7 people cannot take on 30 aliens, but 17 people might have a chance, especially if we use human tactics." "What kind of tactics?" Captain Sora asked. "The kind that other species consider dishonorable," Sergeant Kim replied with a grim smile. "Ambushes, traps, psychological warfare, fighting dirty. My people have a saying," Veltar added. "When the mountain will not move, sometimes you must become the earthquake." Dr. Park was already making notes on her tablet. "I can analyze their patrol patterns and communication methods, if we can predict their movements. And I can rig explosives from the ship debris," Engineer Nam said, his pain forgotten in the face of action. "If you can get me the right materials." "Wink, have materials," Daehyun said. "What we need now is time and courage. Tomorrow we start gathering our army. In 3 days we begin the hunt." Outside their hidden cave, something clicked softly in the darkness. The Kethaval had found their trail sooner than expected. But for the first time since landing on this world, the survivors were ready to fight instead of hide. The clicking sounds grew louder outside their cave. Dr. Park quickly shut off all electronic equipment, while the others grabbed their makeshift weapons. Through a crack in the cave wall, they could see tall shadows moving past. 3 Kethaval stopped directly outside their hiding place. The aliens sniffed the air and clicked to each other in their strange language. One of them pressed its clawed hand against the rock wall, just inches from where Daehyun was crouched. Everyone held their breath. The injured engineer Nam bit down on a piece of cloth to keep from crying out in pain. For 5 long minutes, the Kethaval examined every inch of the cave entrance. Finally, the aliens moved on to search other areas, but their message was clear. The hunters were getting closer. "We need to move tonight," Daehyun whispered once the sounds faded. "Before they come back with more of their kind." "Where can we go?" Captain Sora asked. "They will find us wherever we hide." "We are not hiding anymore," Daehyun replied. "We are going hunting." He pulled Dr. Park aside while the others prepared their equipment. "You said the Kethaval absorb memories from their prey?" What exactly does that mean? From what I have observed, they eat the brain tissue while their victims are still alive, she explained quietly. Somehow this transfers knowledge and skills to them. They become stronger and smarter with each kill. But they can only learn what their victims knew, right? Daehyun asked. They cannot create new knowledge. Dr. Park nodded. That seems correct. They copy and combine existing information, but they do not innovate. Perfect, Daehyun said with a cold smile. Then they have never learned to fight dirty. Over the next few hours, they gathered everything useful from the cave and prepared to abandon it. Engineer Nam fashioned explosives from power cells and fuel containers. Sergeant Kim made crude but effective weapons from ship debris. Dr. Park programmed their scanner to detect Kethval movement patterns. But Daehyun worked on something else entirely. He carved symbols into pieces of metal and stone. Random symbols. That meant nothing to anyone. When the others asked what he was doing, he just smiled and kept working. Psychological warfare, he finally explained. The Kethval think they understand everything because they have absorbed so many memories. But humans have something they have never encountered before. What is that? Veltar asked. The ability to lie creatively. They left the cave through a narrow passage that led to a different tunnel system. Along the way, Daehyun placed his carved symbols in specific locations. To anyone else, they looked like some kind of code or religious writing. The first Kethval patrol that found the symbols spent hours trying to decode them. They brought more aliens to examine the markings. Soon, a large group of hunters was gathered around meaningless scratches, convinced they had found important human intelligence. While the Kethval wasted time on the fake symbols, Daehyun led his team to rescue the next group of survivors. These were the 5 aliens Dr. Park had mentioned, hiding in the deep tunnels. The rescued aliens were from 4 different species. Each brought unique abilities and knowledge. Kavi was a warrior, from a world of eternal night, who could see perfectly in darkness. Ren and Tesh were engineers who understood advanced technology. Quinn was a healer who could treat injuries with limited supplies. Zara was a scout who could move silently and track enemies. 17 total now, Sergeant Kim counted. Still, outnumbered, but getting better. They set up a new base in a large cavern filled with crystal formations. The crystals interfered with Kethval scanning equipment, providing some protection. More importantly, the crystals could be used to create weapons and tools. Dr. Park worked with the alien engineers to analyze captured Kethval technology. They discovered that the hunters relied heavily on sound and scent to track prey. Their advanced equipment was designed to hunt species that fought conventionally. They expect their prey to either run in panic or fight with honor, she explained. Their technology is built around those assumptions. What happens if we do neither? Daehyun asked. Then their advantages become weaknesses, Ren replied. The alien engineer pointed to scanner readings. Their equipment is designed to track movement patterns, not random behavior. This gave Daehyun an idea. Instead of running or fighting directly, they would confuse the hunters completely, make them doubt their own abilities and technology. He divided the survivors into 3 teams. Each team had a specific mission designed to make the Kethval think humans were either completely insane or far more advanced than they actually were. Team 1, led by Sergeant Kim, would leave false trails in random directions. They would create footprints and scent markers that suggested large groups of humans moving in impossible patterns. Team 2, led by Captain Sora, would sabotage Kethval equipment in subtle ways, not destroying it completely, but making it malfunction in confusing ways that would make the hunters doubt their own technology. Team 3, led by Dr. Park, would plant more fake symbols and false information designed to make the Kethval think humans had supernatural abilities or advanced technology they did not actually possess. Daehyun kept the most dangerous job for himself. He would hunt individual Kethval and leave their bodies in impossible locations, making it seem like humans could appear and disappear at will. The plan began immediately. For the next 3 days, the survivors executed their missions while the Kethval grew increasingly confused and paranoid. Team 1 created evidence that 50 humans were moving through the caves in perfect coordination. The false trails suggested impossible speed and the ability to climb straight-up rock walls. Team 2 caused Kethaval scanners to show readings that made no sense. Their equipment began reporting that humans had no body heat, could walk through walls, and appeared in multiple locations simultaneously. Team 3 left symbols that seemed to predict Kethaval movements before they happened. The fake codes suggested humans had been watching the hunters for months and knew all their secrets, but Daehyun's solo missions had the greatest effect. He stalked individual Kethaval who had separated from their groups. Using human stealth techniques and dirty fighting methods, he eliminated them quickly and silently. Then he left the bodies in places that seemed impossible to reach. On top of high crystal formations, inside sealed chambers, hanging from the ceiling in ways that suggested supernatural abilities. After the 5th Kethaval disappeared, the hunters began to panic. They had never encountered prey that fought back so effectively. Their absorbed memories contained no information about dealing with enemies who broke all the rules of conventional warfare. The Kethaval leadership called all their hunters together for an emergency meeting. They gathered in the large bone chamber where Daehyun had first discovered the true nature of the caves. "Perfect," he said, watching from a hidden position. "They are all in one place." Dr. Park checked her equipment one final time. "The explosives are ready. But are you sure this will work?" "Human warfare is about more than just winning battles," Daehyun replied. "It is about breaking the enemy's will to fight. After today, the Kethaval will never feel safe on their own hunting ground again." He activated the detonator. The bone chamber filled with fire and smoke as Engineer Nam's carefully placed explosives destroyed the Kethaval meeting place. But that was only the beginning. Throughout the cave system, more explosions echoed as the survivors triggered their final assault. Years of collected bones and trophies were destroyed. The holographic projection systems that created the fake volcanic surface were shattered. Most importantly, the Kethaval's sense of invincibility was broken forever. For the first time in 1,000 years, the hunters had become the hunted. The explosions echoed through the entire cave system like thunder. Smoke and dust filled the tunnels as ancient support structures collapsed. The Kethaval's perfect hunting ground was falling apart around them. Daehyun and his team moved quickly through the chaos. They had memorized every escape route during their planning. While the Kethaval stumbled through smoke and falling rocks, the survivors reached their predetermined rally point in the crystal cavern. "Sound off," Daehyun called as his people gathered. "Team 1, all present," Sergeant Kim reported. "Team 2, 1 minor injury," Captain Sora added. "Team 3, mission accomplished," Dr. Park confirmed. Engineer Nam was grinning despite his broken leg. "The charges worked perfectly. Half their infrastructure is destroyed." Through the chaos, they could hear the Kethaval calling to each other in panic. The clicking sounds that had once been so terrifying now carried fear and confusion. The hunters were learning what it felt like to be prey. But Daehyun knew this was just the beginning. "We hurt them, but we did not defeat them. They will reorganize and come after us with everything they have." "How many do you think survived the explosions?" Veltar asked. Dr. Park checked her scanner readings. "At least 20, maybe more. They are scattered throughout the caves, but they are already regrouping." "Good," Daehyun said, surprising everyone. "Let them come together. It will make our next move easier." He spread out a new map that showed the entire cave system. Red marks indicated where the explosions had blocked tunnels and collapsed chambers. Blue marks showed areas that were still accessible. "The Kethaval are thinking like hunters," he explained. "They want to corner us and finish this quickly, but we are not going to run." "What are we going to do?" Communications Officer Yoon asked. "We are going to capture one of them alive," Daehyun replied. The cave fell silent. Everyone stared at him like he had lost his mind. "Captain," Sergeant Kim said carefully, "those things are twice as strong as humans. Their claws can cut through metal, and they absorb the memories of anything they eat." "Exactly," Daehyun said with a cold smile. "That memory absorption works, both ways. Dr. Park, show them what you discovered." Dr. Park activated her tablet and displayed her research data. "I have been studying the Kethaval technology for weeks. The memory absorption process uses a form of neural interface. It allows them to access the thoughts and knowledge of their victims. But neural interfaces can be reversed, Engineer Nam said, suddenly understanding. If we could capture one alive and access its memories, we would learn everything, Dr. Park finished. Their numbers, their weaknesses, their plans. Most importantly, we would discover how to leave this planet. The idea was insane and dangerous, but it was also brilliant. The survivors had been fighting blind, not knowing how many enemies they faced or how to escape. Capturing a Kethval would give them all the intelligence they needed. How do we catch something that powerful without killing it? Scout Zara asked. Daehyun pointed to a section of the map where several tunnels converged. We set a trap, but not the kind of trap they would expect. Over the next several hours, they prepared for the most dangerous mission yet. The alien engineers worked with Dr. Park to modify a neural interface device from the crashed ships. Sergeant Kim and the warrior Kavi scouted potential ambush locations. The others prepared nets, restraints, and sedatives. But the most important part of the plan was psychological. They needed to make a Kethval so angry and overconfident that it would ignore caution and walk into their trap. I will be the bait, Daehyun announced. Absolutely not, Dr. Park protested. If something goes wrong, we lose our leader. It has to be me, Daehyun insisted. The Kethval are furious that a human has been killing their kind. They want revenge more than they want a clean kill. That anger will make them careless. They spent the rest of the day setting up the ambush. The trap was located in a narrow canyon where crystal formations created natural choke points. If everything went according to plan, they would have a captured Kethval by evening. If anything went wrong, Daehyun would be torn apart by alien claws. As darkness fell in the caves, Daehyun took his position in the center of the canyon. He carried only a small light and his sidearm. Everything depended on making himself look vulnerable and alone. The others hid in crevices among the crystal formations. They had practiced this dozens of times, but everyone knew that real combat was different from training. They did not have to wait long. The sound of claws clicking on stone echoed through the canyon. Not just one set of footsteps, but three. The Kethval were hunting in a pack. Daehyun stood in the open and activated his light. He made sure his movements looked tired and desperate. To watching aliens, he appeared to be an exhausted human who had finally made a mistake. The three Kethval approached carefully at first. They had learned to respect human cunning over the past few days. But when they saw what looked like an easy target, their hunting instincts took over. The largest alien moved ahead of the others. Its scales were darker than the rest, marking it as a leader. This was exactly what Daehyun had hoped for. Leaders would have the most valuable memories. The Kethval leader raised its claws and prepared to strike. But as it stepped into the center of the canyon, hidden triggers activated. Nets made from ship cables dropped from above. Crystal formations exploded in carefully controlled bursts that blocked the escape routes. The two smaller aliens were caught, completely off guard. One was crushed by falling rocks. The other was trapped under a heavy net and quickly overwhelmed by the hidden survivors. But the leader was faster and stronger than expected. It tore through the first net and lunged at Daehyun with murderous fury. Its claws whistled through the air where his head had been a moment before. Daehyun rolled sideways and fired his weapon. The energy blast caught the alien in the shoulder, spinning it around but not stopping it. The Kethval recovered quickly and struck again. This time, its claws caught Daehyun's arm. Pain shot through him as sharp talons cut through his jacket and into his flesh. But he had expected this. Human tactics were about accepting damage in order to win. As the alien pressed its attack, Sergeant Kim and Kavi emerged from hiding. They hit the Kethval leader with neural disruptors that Dr. Park had modified from medical equipment. The alien stumbled and fell to one knee, but it was still conscious. Now, Daehyun shouted. The entire team swarmed the stunned alien. Restraints made from ship cables wrapped around its arms and legs. Sedatives designed for alien physiology were injected into its bloodstream. Within minutes, the most dangerous predator on the planet was their prisoner. Dr. Park immediately began setting up the modified neural interface. This will take time. The alien mind is very different from human consciousness. How long? Daehyun asked, holding his wounded arm. Several hours if it works at all, she replied. It will work, he said with certainty. It has to. As Dr. Park connected the neural interface to the captured Kethval, images began to flow across her scanner screen. At first they were just flashes of alien thoughts and memories, but gradually, a clear picture emerged. The Kethval were not just hunters. They were part of a galaxy-wide network of trap worlds. Dozens of planets had been converted into hunting preserves where they lured and captured travelers from across the stars. But most shocking of all was the revelation that this planet was not isolated. There were orbital stations hidden above the surface. Stations filled with more Kethval and their collected trophies from 1,000 different species. We are not just fighting for our lives, Dr. Park said quietly. We are fighting for every spacefarer in the galaxy. If we do not stop them here, they will continue this horror forever. Daehyun looked at his wounded arm and then at his exhausted team. 17 survivors against an interstellar network of cannibalistic aliens. The odds were impossible. Then we better make sure we win, he said. The neural interface revealed everything. Through the captured Kethval's memories, they saw the orbital stations hidden in the planet's shadow. Massive structures filled with hunting trophies, weapons, and communication equipment that connected to dozens of other trap worlds across the galaxy. But most importantly, they learned about the control systems. The fake volcanic surface was managed from the orbital stations, the gravity manipulators that made lava flow uphill, the holographic projectors that created impossible flame patterns, even the atmospheric processors that filled the air with toxic gases. All of it was controlled from above. There are 3 stations, Dr. Park reported, studying the alien memories. Each one has about 50 Kethval aboard. The stations rotate around the planet every 6 hours. 150 more enemies, Sergeant Kim calculated grimly, and we have not even finished dealing with the ones down here. The stations are the key, Daehyun realized. If we can take control of them, we can shut down the entire trap system. Maybe even send warning signals to other worlds. Engineer Nam looked up from the technical data flowing across the screens. Captain, those are military-grade orbital platforms. We are talking about weapons that can destroy entire fleets. How can 17 people take control of something like that? The same way we survived down here, Daehyun replied, by doing what they never expect. The alien memories showed them something else. Transport shuttles moved between the orbital stations and the planet's surface every 12 hours. The next shuttle was scheduled to arrive in 4 hours to collect any new prisoners the ground teams had captured. That is our way up, Daehyun said. We capture the shuttle and use it to reach the stations. And then what? Captain Sora asked. Even if we somehow take control of one station, the other 2 will destroy us. Dr. Park was still analyzing the neural data. Wait. There is something else here. The stations are not just weapons platforms. They are also processing centers. She brought up new images from the Kethval memories. The orbital stations contained massive computers that coordinated the trap systems across multiple worlds. If those computers were destroyed, dozens of trap planets would be left unable to function. The Kethval have been using this network for over 1,000 years, she explained. They have become completely dependent on the central coordination system. Without it, each group of hunters would be isolated and confused. How many trap worlds are we talking about? Veltar asked. At least 40, Dr. Park replied. Maybe more. The network spans half the galaxy. The cave fell silent as everyone absorbed this information. They had stumbled onto something much larger than a simple rescue mission. This was about stopping a galactic-scale horror that had been claiming victims for centuries. We have to try, Daehyun said finally. Even if we die in the attempt, we have to warn the rest of the galaxy about this threat. The shuttle will be heavily guarded, Warrior Kavi pointed out, and we still have 20 Kethval somewhere in these caves. Then we deal with them first, Daehyun decided. All of them. No survivors to report back to the stations. They spent the next hour preparing for their final battle on the planet's surface. The remaining Kethval were regrouping near the main cave entrance, exactly where Daehyun wanted them. Using information from the captured alien, they learned that the hunters always gathered at the transport site before shuttle arrivals. It was a tradition that went back centuries. All the ground-based Kethval would present their captured prey to the orbital commanders. "Perfect," Sergeant Kim said. "They will all be in one place, probably showing off and competing with each other. They will not expect an attack." The survivors split into 3 teams again, but this time their mission was simple elimination. No fancy tactics or psychological warfare, just effective, brutal combat using every advantage they could find. Team 1 would use the remaining explosives to collapse the cave entrance, trapping the Kethval outside with no way to retreat underground. Team 2 would attack from the high ground using weapons salvaged from the crashed ships. Team 3 would move in for close combat once the aliens were disoriented. As they prepared to leave the crystal cavern for the last time, Communications Officer Yoon made an important discovery. The neural interface had given them access to Kethval communication codes. "I can contact the orbital stations," he said. "Make them think everything is normal until we are ready to attack." "Do it," Daehyun ordered. "Tell them the ground teams caught some interesting prey and request an immediate pickup." The final battle began 2 hours before dawn. The survivors moved through the caves like ghosts, using every trick they had learned during their time as prey. But now they were the predators. They found the 20 remaining Kethval gathered around the cave entrance, exactly as predicted. The aliens were displaying their few captured trophies and arguing about territory. They felt completely safe in their own domain. The explosions came first. Engineer Nam's charges brought down tons of rock, sealing the cave entrance and eliminating any hope of retreat. The Kethval spun around in confusion, suddenly trapped in their own hunting ground. Energy weapons fired from the high rocks above. The alien engineers had modified ship weapons into sniper rifles that could punch through Kethval armor. 3 aliens fell before the others could react. But the remaining 17 Kethval were not helpless. They spread out and began to climb toward the shooter positions, their claws allowing them to scale vertical rock faces with frightening speed. This was when Team 3 struck. Led by Daehyun and the warrior Kavi, they attacked the scattered aliens from behind. Close combat was dangerous, but it prevented the Kethval from coordinating their superior numbers. The battle was fierce and bloody. 2 more survivors were wounded, and they lost Scout Zara when an alien's claws found her throat. But human determination and dirty fighting techniques proved superior to alien strength and speed. When the last Kethval fell, the surface of the trap world was finally free of its masters. But the hardest part of their mission still lay ahead. The transport shuttle arrived on schedule, its crew expecting to find prisoners and trophies waiting for collection. Instead, they found 17 heavily armed survivors who had learned to fight like demons. The shuttle crew was overwhelmed before they could send a warning signal. Within minutes, the survivors had control of their transport to the orbital stations. Phase 1 complete, Daehyun announced as they lifted off from the nightmare world. Now for the real fight. Through the shuttle's viewports, they could see the 3 orbital stations hanging in space like dark spiders. Each one bristled with weapons and swarmed with enemy fighters. The stations had been built to process victims from trap worlds, but they had also been designed as fortresses. "The central station is the primary command center," Dr. Park said, reading the data from their captured shuttle. "If we can take control of it, we can access the entire galactic network." "And if we fail?" Captain Sora asked. "Then we make sure. These stations cannot harm anyone else," Daehyun replied. He was already planning their final assault. Sometimes victory means destroying the enemy, even if it costs everything. As their shuttle approached the first orbital station, 17 survivors prepared to face hundreds of alien predators in a battle that would determine the fate of countless worlds. The hunters had become the hunted, but the final hunt was just beginning. The communication system crackled to life as the station demanded identification. Communications Officer Yoon responded in perfect Kethval language, using codes taken from their prisoner. "Ground Team 7 requesting immediate docking," he said. "We have exceptional specimens for the Elder Feast." "Acknowledged," came the reply. "Docking Bay 5 is prepared." As their shuttle was guided into the station's docking bay, Daehyun checked his weapon one final time. Around him, 16 other survivors did the same. They had survived impossible odds on the planet below. Now they would either free the galaxy from an ancient evil or die trying. The docking bay doors closed behind them with a sound like a tomb sealing. But for the first time since this nightmare began, the humans were not afraid. They had learned something important during their time as prey. Sometimes the greatest victories come not from superior strength or advanced technology, but from the simple refusal to give up. The Keithval had spent 1,000 years perfecting their hunting techniques, but they had never learned to fight an enemy that would rather die than surrender. Today they would learn that lesson, even if it killed them all.